Alright guys, so in this video I'm detailing my student loan journey from start to almost finish, and I'll tell you what I mean by almost finished in just a minute, but just to kind of assess what the journey's been like. It's been a long time coming, and this is it. Alright, so just to kind of summarize it up, I have a bachelor's degree from the University of South Florida, and I am class of 2012 with a bunch of other great graduates along with me. And somehow I doubt I'm the only one with student loans, so this might be an issue that a lot of you guys share who watch my channel. So if it helps any of you, if it inspires any of you, please feel free to just take whatever you want from this video, and I hope it makes your life or your situation better. So I got accepted into the University of South Florida. I was 18 in 2008. I was super excited about it because this was my chance to go to college. I made a previous video about what I know now versus then and college, but got the letter. I loved it. So big shout out to the University of South Florida for accepting me. They accepted me. I applied, so I wanted to go there. I got in 2008. Once I graduated, by the way, to get through college, I would take out loans. And not just, when people say student loans, I don't know how it is for you guys, but for me, I took out many small loans. So each semester they were offering me different loans, subsidized and unsubsidized, to get through college. So I would just sign off on them, and then that would pay my tuition, my books, and then I would get a net check at the end of the funding, which whatever was excess money, and I would use that to live on. So I was using it to not only supplement my income, but also to pay for my education at that particular time. Fast forward to the end of it, I graduated college I got my diploma in July of 2012, and at that particular time I owed $29,500 or something like that, close to $30,000 in loans. So when you first graduate, you're just excited to be done with college. I was like, okay, time to get a job. I made it. So I'm looking for jobs. I'm applying everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. I'm looking around it, not just within my major, which was psychology, but I'm looking at like anywhere that I can get a job, because I needed to pay rent. Bills were coming in. I wasn't a student anymore. It's go time. So I got a call about 3 or 4 months later, and they wanted their first payment. I think they wanted, it started with a 3. I don't even know the exact amount, but it was like $300, 300 change. And I was just like, I had no money in my account. Like, I was barely paying rent, so I was definitely not able to pay that amount they wanted. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I ended up doing income-based. I deferred it a few times. I was never able to get a grip on my student loan. So every year, the years were starting to roll by. I was working and making decent money, but never enough to really make a dent. I was only able to make either the minimum payment or like a income-based repayment. It was always just barely making it as far as the loan payment. So then about 5 years in, so this was about 5 years into after graduating, I just stopped looking at the balance of my loan. I just completely stopped looking at it. And I just said, you know what, it is what it is. My friends were having fun. I was going out. I'm like, I'm young. I need to enjoy my life a little bit. I can't let these loans be a burden. But they were always in the back of my mind. So I tried that scenario of just forgetting about it and living with the loans and just kind of paying the payments so it didn't go into default, and just kind of doing that whole thing. And it was fun. I was able to forget I owed money for a little while, but I could never make real substantial moves in my life, like buying a house, financing a car. You can finance a car with student loans, but if you're paying that $300 a month payment or any payment, and you got a car payment, that's going to be problematic. I just kind of lived my life around my loans. Fast forward to 6 years in, I knew now, I started to kind of like, when you say mature, grow up, whatever you want to say, and I started to realize, look, I've got to deal with this debt problem if I want to make the next steps in life that a lot of adults make. It took me from graduating, being excited, living with my loans and pretending like it didn't happen or it wasn't there, it wasn't really a pressing issue, just starting to realize, hey man, you're going to have to deal with this if you want to go to another level in your life. So that's when I realized I needed to make a change. This was the turning point in my life. I was 29 years old and I was living in Tampa, Florida. Everybody around me was having a really good time. We were going out. I don't regret any of this, by the way. We're having fun. What was I doing? What were we celebrating? What was even happening? So I made the decision at that time I needed to move to a place where there were no more distractions. Very few people knew me, and I could really start to just get a grip. I didn't think of it as really doing it for the student loan payments or any debt payments. I just knew I needed to do something completely different to what I was or what I had been doing. I scouted out a couple areas, couple major cities. It was between New York, Atlanta, and California, somewhere in Los Angeles area. And I did an analysis, and I came up with Houston, Texas. It's pretty random, but not really. I'll get to the reason for that. It's actually low cost of living, no state tax, doesn't snow too much. And well, people said it didn't snow in Houston. I got news for you. It does snow in Houston, okay? So any of you thinking of moving to Houston for the warm weather, it gets kind of cold here. Anyway, so I ended up moving to Houston, Texas. I put everything in a rental van, and I just drove to Houston. I told my close friends about 2 weeks before leaving, look, this is what I'm doing. So they were all supporters, so shout out to my friends. I love all of you who are watching this. And my friends were supportive in anything I wanted to do. I told them, hey, this is what I'm doing, and they told me they didn't really like the idea, but they said, hey man, if that's what's gonna make you happy. Turns out I wasn't doing it for happiness. I was doing it to take a hold of my future. I did a big sale where I sold all the stuff in my apartment. I put all the stuff in a van, and I drove to Houston, Texas, because a couple months earlier I had flown up to Houston, signed a lease, figured out I had an apartment, and figured out my apartment situation. And I drove up here. My job, fortunately, transferred me up here. And once I got to Houston, it was kind of like, okay, there was no more distractions. It was quiet. I logged into all my accounts that I owed money to, my credit cards, my student loan. Nelnet is my student loan servicer. Logged in. I hadn't looked at this account. I hadn't logged in years. It had to be at least 2 to 3 years that I had actually logged in and looked at that balance. It had grown from the $30,000 amount when I had graduated to around $37,500, almost $38,000. That's the cost of like a new Camry. You could buy a new car for that money. Like, this is like crazy. And keep in mind, at the time I moved to Houston, I had no car because I drove up in a rental van. I had no furniture, and I wasn't certain about a job because my licensing was having some issues with at my job. So I had all my financial statements on the table, and I made the decision right then. I'm not leaving this city and this state. I'm not even gonna go out and celebrate until I get a hold of this situation. And that was a firm decision I made. It was a promise to myself. Just like that, I started slowly dissecting my loans. I added up the total amount that I owed. I said, this is my problem. I circled it on like a whiteboard. I said, this is what I owe. I cannot make any significant steps in my life until I address this particular problem right here. That's it. So I'm in sales, for the people who don't know. Being a sales guy, we make a lot of money or make a little money. It fluctuates. I haven't made there has not been the same dollar amount on 2 consecutive paychecks in the past 5 years for me. So that should tell you right there. I'm a sales guy. So being in sales, you can make commission and you can make a lot of it if you really push yourself. That's what I did. Turned up the gear, turned on the afterburners, and I started working. I locked myself in my room, and I turned off my phone, and I got to work. And yeah, I had a little social life, but it was nothing compared to what I had in Florida. And it's been 2 years. I averaged $1,700 a month payments on my student loans, and I took it down from the $37,500 mark. In my last video, I made a payment on it. Right now, it's sitting at around $4,600, and that's gonna lead me to my second installment of this video, which is at the end of this month. I have very, very, very long overdue and exciting video that I'm gonna post about the resolution of how this is gonna end. Basically, my student loan story, my journey. I got to Texas and just started devoting every single dollar that I could to that loan. As soon as my paycheck would hit my account, I'd make a phone call to Nelnet and do it over the phone, because there was just something gratifying about making that phone call and doing it in a live phone call to a live representative. And I knew that the money was being paid, and I could allocate it to the highest interest rate loans, because I had like a ledger of like 30 loans, so I would just pay off the highest interest rate after I had made my general payment. 2 years of that on a consistent basis, paying every single dollar that I could to my student loans. I had none for myself. I'd see money hit my account, a nice big paycheck from my sales job. None of it was mine. It all belonged to the government, and that's okay. I literally turned off the selfish button, the selfishness gene that I had, or not gene, but the selfishness need to go have a good time, to celebrate, to feel any kind of gratification. And I said, look, I'm just going to pay this off. It's a strange place you have to go in your mind when you commit to something. And when you tell yourself that you deserve something, you really have to tap into another gear that I don't think is just out there floating around. You have to really dig into somewhere deep down in here, because there's days when it's very difficult and there's days when it's hard to maintain that level of focus. You have to keep reminding yourself of your initial intent, because life is going to try to pull you away from it. So just to sum it up, not to let this video go too long, my journey led me from ignoring my loans to trying to tread water and pay the minimum, and it was just growing, to finally taking control. It's been about a 7-year journey. I am finally just about out of the woods. End of this month, making another video on how this is all going to end. Right now, I am $4,600 away from freedom. I can see the finish line, and it is a beautiful thing. It's a day that I've been dreaming of for the past 7 years. A day that I sometimes wouldn't think of. Some days I would think of it. Some days I would pretend it wasn't a big deal and it didn't matter to me. But all of those days, I can tell you one thing: I was aware that I owed money, and I was aware that I couldn't make meaningful steps in my life until I had addressed that issue. So that's been my journey, and it's affected my life. The loans and the education debt has affected my life. If you're a responsible person and you care about the outcome of your financial situation and where you're going in life and what you're going to be able to do for your family, you're going to care about this kind of thing. I mean, it's simple as that. So it's all about that ownership step and taking ownership of your life. It's not pretty and it's not fun, and not everybody you talk to is going to even be okay with it. They're not all going to be on board and like, hey, go you know. They say that you're not supposed to complain, which I'm not big into complaining. But if you do complain, they say, you know, the 80-20 rule: 20% of the people don't care about the problem that you're telling them about, and the other 80% are glad that you have that problem. So just keep it right here. Remember why you're working hard and why you're sacrificing and why you're staying up late and waking up early and going to bed late and pushing yourself, because you're trying to help yourself. You're trying to free yourself. So I hope that does help some people, because nobody was. I looked around and I couldn't find anyone talking about this real. Like, I'm looking into the camera right now, and I'm telling you guys that having a college education is not all that it seems, because it comes with a lot of extra stuff on the other side, which is okay, right? Not complaining. I took out those loans and I signed on the dotted line, and they have my name on it. But guess what? I also stepped up and took ownership of my situation. And in my next video I'm making in a couple weeks, we're going to see how all this comes to an end. And then there's going to be a new challenge. So stay tuned. Thank you guys, for everyone who follows me. Please subscribe to my channel. You can subscribe to as many channels as you want. It doesn't affect anything. Just hit subscribe real quick, or like, thumbs up, comment. Tell me about any issues you're having, or not necessarily issues, but student loan challenges, and maybe I can help you on a one-off situation. I've looked into all the forgiveness programs. I've looked into all the income-based repayments, the pros and the cons. I've made this my personal mission. So if you guys have any concerns or questions, or just want to, talk shop in the comments, I will respond. So thank you guys for taking the time to watch my video on my student loan journey. And that's all for now. Keep at it.